All right, I think we're going to begin. If our audience members can take a seat. Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out to the Central Library today. I'm Kevin Alcuni, a librarian here in the Exploration and Creativity Department, and I'm here to welcome you to today's Indie Author Talk, Indie Author Zine Talk with Razorcake and Heavy Manners Library. This is where you... Yeah, all right, thank you. Very enthused. This program is made possible with the generous support of the National Endowment for the Humanities via the LA Made Fund, so huzzah to that. We'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land, honor their elders past and present, as well as their descendants who are citizens of these nations. For more information on which territory you may reside on, check out native-land.ca. Just a couple of other housekeeping tips. Silence your electronic devices. Take a moment to notice the locations of the exits at the back and the sides. If you parked in the garage underneath the library today, you can get your parking ticket validated at the info desk in the main lobby, and the parking will only be $1 as long as you parked after 9:30 and leave before 5:30. Yay, $1 parking. No eating or drinking. And the bathrooms, unless it's bottled water, and the bathrooms are down the hallway to your right. And now for today's amazing program, Spreading Artwork, Love, and Zines with Razorcake and Heavy Manners Library. Please help me in welcoming Todd Taylor from Razorcake, a DIY punk fanzine that has been published in Los Angeles since 2001, and Matthew James Wilson from, yay! From Heavy Manners Library, a lending library, art gallery, and bookstore that seeks to provide a space for developing, sharing, and discussing artwork. And today we're gonna, thank you. You guys came out too early, that's all right. We're gonna discuss all things zines, DIY life, and being creative in an industry town. All right. You guys came out too early. Oh.
Dang it, sorry.
Hello? Hello? No? All right. Test your mics.
Check, check. Check, check.
Hello? No.
Did you turn it on?
Hold on. Hello? All right. They had it covered. Where's their cover? It's confusing. All right. I'm a librarian. All right. Hi, everybody. Let's start again. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So if you can just briefly introduce yourselves to our audience.
My name is Matthew James Wilson. I'm one of the co-founders of Heavy Manners Library, which is an independent library that mostly focuses on art books and art education. Yeah, I'm from Toronto originally, but I've lived in LA since 2018.
And how long has Heavy Manners Library been around for?
We just celebrated 3 years in October.
All right, super cool. Todd?
My name is Todd Taylor. I am the executive director of Razorcake magazine. We're an official 501c3 nonprofit music magazine run out of Highland Park since 2001. We have 162 volunteers, and we are published worldwide.
Wow, 162?
Incredible.
Every 2 months, we have 162 regulars, but we have one-off people too, providing photography or any illustrations.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a community. All right, so let's get into it. So how did you both get into zines, and do you remember the first zine you really got into? Why don't you start, Matthew?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that I would say, yeah, I think I grew up with the internet, so I certainly got access to a lot of print material, initially finding it online and then seeking it out. And so I think that I started going to zine fairs probably in high school, and that was where I really interacted with people who were just presenting those ideas in person and making a lot of printed materials. There's a few cartoonists who I was really into and whose work I think, yeah, just really challenged my sense of what you could self-publish and how you could make that work, and then also, yeah, a lot of independent music magazines were always really significant for me. But yeah, I would say one person in particular that sticks out in my mind is there's an artist named Michael DeForge, and he's a cartoonist from Toronto where I grew up, and he made a lot of gig posters for musicians and also made tons of his own self-published comics, and then eventually worked with Koyama Press and Drawn and Quarterly for most of his books.
Do you find you were just kind of drawn to alternative kind of media from a younger age, and that's kind of what drew you to zines?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like played music as a younger person, and I think music was really the sort of gateway for me for a lot of stuff, and it was cool to see. I think as a high schooler, it would be a lot easier to be able to make a t-shirt for a band or make fan art or make a flyer. And so the sort of intersection of where music and visual art and writing all coalesced, I think that really appealed to me, and that led to me making my first zine, which was a magazine called Forge.
Oh, okay. Todd?
So I'm a bit older. So it was when I was first got introduced to zines, it was pre-internet by a good margin. Mm-hmm. So it'd be like, I'd say around 1987. And for me, zines and music have always been really intertwined. So, I mean, so the first 3 records, my brother and I bought records together because we'd pool our lawn mowing money together. So the first one was Pac-Man Fever. The second one was the Who's Greatest Hits, and then my brother like kind of got off on it. So then the third record I ever bought was Crass's Penis Envy, which was a big step because you're trying to like, this is pre-internet, you don't know what's going on. You're just like, okay, you're at the whim of who's at the record store. Or so my first zine ever was at Tower Records, and because of the Who, I was really into old scooters. So the first zine I ever had was Pow, and it was like a mod Vespa Lambretta scootering zine with Lee Merriweather on the cover. And I must have read that internally like 30, 40 times. So there's stuff music I still have not heard, Floyd Lloyd and the Potato Five, that I was really, really kind of into because I'd never heard it. And it kind of put me down this, music and zines put me down this very interesting path that was very separated from popular culture. And what happened is when I was a senior, I actually got a bunch of people, we made an alternative yearbook. Didn't call it a zine, but it was a collaboration of 50, 60 people who are usually more covered in the yearbook.
Wow.
And published it. And then we weren't allowed to sell it on campus, so we had these little signs that said bake sale,
Yeah.
which was acceptable.
How DIY.
And then you sell it that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's
So
incredible.
that's it.
It's always interesting to kind of hear the pre-internet and kind of post-internet exploration into zine culture, because zine is such a physical element, but pre-internet, getting information was, outside of the norm, was just not challenging, but it was interesting how it would filter down. And you were mentioning Tower Records as a kind of a source for.
Yeah, their zine buyer, Clint, was the national one. Clint was great.
Wow.
He was amazing. Even when we started doing, when I worked at Flipside for a while and started Razorcake, if it wasn't for him, we would probably be a very different zine or it not exist.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
The flip side is legendary. That's awesome.
So kind of pivoting off of the pre and post-internet, because we live in such a highly digitized world now where everything is streamed, music, TV shows, music, and along with so much of the content that people consume is online, where does a zine, a physical handmade thing, kind of reside in the culture for the two of you?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because I feel like the original sort of definition for zines was often a sort of fanzine, and it's typically somebody who doesn't have a relationship to the subject that they're talking about, and then they're making this critique or sort of admiration of that thing. And I think that what the internet has really sort of satisfied with the past with zines is I think zines were a way to express yourself and share a thought, no matter how personal or vulgar or esoteric that could be. And I think that like social media or different ways that people can just sort of spout their opinion really immediately certainly has taken up what a lot of what zines may have functioned in the past. But I do think that with a zine, part of the thing that's nice is like, even though you don't have an editor, you still have to sit with that idea long enough to like staple every copy, print it out, spell check it. And so I do think that there is, although it is personal, and although it is without an editor in most cases, you still are digesting your thoughts and ideas, and you're also, there's a level of anonymity that's possible with the zine, and there's a degree of, you can circulate it in whatever way that you want. You can leave it places, you can give it to specific people, and I think that the internet sort of fails to have some of that, I don't know, reconsidering what it is that you are saying, or the degree of filter that I think a zine provides to fully flesh out whatever idea that you're saying, even if it is just your own and it's not like a collaborative thing.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. I would say one thing that zines are really a lot better at than streaming and having those things automatically is mental health. You get to sit with your ideas. You can you're not tethered to anything electronic, which doesn't seem like that much, but you're away from that noise and that instant feedback loop. And so I think zines go into the classification of perfect things that have been invented. So it goes like bicycles, vinyl record, punk, and zine for me, right?
Wow.
You can improve on it,
Right.
but you have to continually reestablish yourself in those things. You can refine them. I mean, we're not. I don't think that Razorcake's in a cul-de-sac by any stretch, but there's something really gratifying about doing it this way. So if some ding dong has to I don't answer any social media at all. I have an email address. If somebody emails me and said I have a problem with you, then we will talk.
Sure.
But there's filters there. Instead of you spend, say, 100 hours on this thing, and then somebody spends less than 10 seconds and flames you, and you're on equal level, I think, to me, that's horrible for my mental health.
Sure.
Definitely.
Sure.
You know? So that would be my answer. Zines are very rarely the spotlight of anything, of any sort of cultural thing. They're never going to be new again, right?
Right.
We're never going to have that novelty, but I think there's a really big utility for them.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking of community-wise, you can get people together, you can share things, you can share resources, you can have readings, and you have these connections that I think that the internet has promised but not delivered in a lot of ways.
Interesting.
Totally.
You also touched upon something where when you have something physical, you can reread it. And how often are you reading something on the internet? Unless you're getting flamed, and maybe you'll reread the comments.
Right.
But like when you have a zine, and if it's a topic and a subject matter that's of real interest to you that you've never maybe learned upon before, rereading something, I feel like culturally is not something that you often hear about as much anymore. And I think with the zine and a collection of zines, you'll go back and you'll reread things. And I feel like maybe that's something that we've kind of lost in a digital age as well.
Yeah. I mean, I just think of we're at a library. Library has a lot of services, but the written word is the basis of it.
Sure.
Paper is the base of it. We don't want to throw that away. We don't want to devalue that.
Right.
There's going to be something that's more popular, I get that. I totally get that. And there's going to be more immediate response to that. Always going to be that way.
Right.
But I can share it. We came here on the bus. I could leave one on the bus and someone would pick it up. And, people are a little bit different. You can read it on the toilet, which I think is really important,
Totally. I mean, even to add to that, I think part of my impetus for starting a library, I think, was just the fact that there is this precedent. Every civilization, for as long as recorded history has been around, has had a library or has had some sort of archive. And I think that although the internet is so inescapable and feels like it is affecting our daily lives so frequently, we forget how short the amount of time that it has been around. And,
Right.
and it's also something too where I think it does have this sense of permanence that you can share something online, or you can put a video out or something like that, and it feels like because any person with an internet connection can access that, it feels like it exists forever and it's more permanent than something like a zine. But as we've seen, tons of websites have died, links break, things do not actually last forever. I think even, I just visited the Internet Archive, which is a really big library, and they, MTV News, their entire archive of their entire website basically was taken offline because of just MTV not wanting to pay for hosting all of that material. And the Internet Archive came in and basically preserved all of that stuff. And yeah, and I think maybe too that kind of speaks to zines have this temporalness as well as can really last forever in some capacity. And so that's something I really like about them, is like it can feel a little bit disposable, and it can feel like something that isn't meant to stand the test of time, but it also, yeah, it's not going to break the way a link can.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love zines, so yeah, cool.
Me too.
What do you think are some of the elements of a good zine? Design, content, size, just when you're picking something up, what are some of the elements of a zine that you were like, oh, this is cool? Just any thoughts?
I'll go first. So this guy, John Porcellino, who does a really awesome zine called King Cat.
Long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
He said there's no such thing as a bad zine.
Oh, interesting.
No, exactly. No. He's right and he's wrong at the same time.
Right.
Because 2 days before I came here, Razorcake also reviews zines. So we've reviewed, I'm going to take a stab, 3,000-4,000 zines over our lifetime, right?
Wow.
So somebody sent a single page folded of terrible, nonsensical poetry, and that's a zine. I don't like it. That's my personal thing.
Sure.
But they took enough time to print it, send it, put a note with it, and that's intentional. And I like that. As opposed to what the negation of that would be. So I say a lot of it is, I'm just annoyed by it, but that's fine. But they did something that's in this milieu instead of doing a blog or something that I would never have would never access intentionally. So, yes and no, there are bad things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think that something that I really like about zines, especially in a very digital age, is there's no instructions for how to make a zine.
Oh, sure.
And I think that it's really cool to see how people may approach assembling a zine very differently.
Oh, interesting.
Somebody may cut the paper to be circular shaped. Some people may sew the pages together. It might just be a gigantic sheet of paper that then folds down to a bunch of pages. And yeah, I think for me, a marker of a great zine is one where somebody is not trying to emulate the design of something else and is really just figuring out how they want it to look. And I don't know, yeah, it's just, it's interesting too. Like I talked to a book publisher that does a lot of Rezo printing, and he was saying because so many of these artists who are making zines now, they'll just go to a printing studio and will essentially ask them to print their zine. So many zines end up just looking the same because it's all being printed by the same place. And so I think I really like when you see a zine where clearly somebody was just making this on their couch, and I don't know, maybe there's some chocolate stains on some part of it, or maybe they hand colored stuff, or maybe they signed it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And maybe they ran out of the paper they used for half of the copies, and then yeah, so that's cool.
It feels like what you're both saying is, I guess a good zine is one that touches you personally, and it feels thoughtful, like someone put a lot of themselves into it.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about zines is they're wide open.
It's a whole universe.
You don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
you don't have to answer to a publisher. You're the publisher. Do what you want to do. I mean, I've read really great, like, quilting zines. Seriously.
No, I
like,
believe
they're
it.
really awesome.
Right.
I'll read things about things I'm not even interested in, but it's in a zine, and I'm really interested in it for the time that I'm reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did ask, what makes a bad zine, but it sounds like it's two things. A bad zine could be a zine that just looks like any other zine, and there's nothing really personal or specific.
Yeah. Well, I have some things that just tee me off.
Oh, sure, go off.
If it's purely digital, it's not a zine. It's a PDF.
Oh, interesting. So
Right?
if it's not a physical element.
If it's not a physical thing that I can hold,
yeah,
it's not a zine. And if you are, say, like a large corporation trying to say maybe like have people quit smoking because you got sued, like Philip Morris, you cannot put out a zine for the Truth Campaign. That is not a zine. That is a government pamphlet. Those are two bad zines off the top of my head.
All right. So there are bad zines.
There are bad zines.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like another thing that I think of when I think of like a bad zine, I remember something that somebody said to me as far as making like a magazine is getting it to the second issue is one of the hardest hurdles for a project, and I think that sometimes when you see a zine that somebody is being very ambitious and is like, this is going to be volume 1 of 1,000 or something like that, and they just don't get to the point where they can like continue to commit to the project.
Right.
I think that like making a zine where you can accept like maybe this is the only one, and that's kind of nice, or just I think that there's I certainly admire when somebody sets out to make several volumes of something, and they, no matter how much work it is or how I don't know how little the thing represents what they thought it would be, the fact that they still get it made and finish it, I think, is a pretty admirable thing.
Yeah, it sounds like a level of self-awareness. If you think you have the ability to make zines for 20 years, but you can only do one, as opposed to acknowledging maybe it'll just be one and that's fine and that's enough for me. That could be part of it too.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a trend in the type of zines that are coming out now? And has there been a type of evolution in zines in general? For example, are people still making zines at Kinko's? Wait, not Kinko's, FedEx. R.I.P. Kinko's. And just to follow up on that, is a book like Stolen Sharpie Revolution being bought and read by Gen Z now? Like, are those kinds of trends still happening? Are zines still being kind of created in the same way that they were made in the 80s and the 90s and so on?
For the 80s and 90s, and even, so I worked on daily, Flipside, from 96 to 2000, started Razorcake 2001 through today. The biggest change in the large landscape, and I'm talking mostly punk zines, is we're the last one standing that has a national presence, that comes out on a regular basis. So Suburban Voice is gone, Profane Existence is gone, Slug and Lettuce is gone. Even other zines that just review zines, like Geographic Debt, is gone now too. So that to me is a real shift. The interesting thing is a lot of the people that did those zines now work with us in some capacity. And I think that is a very hard landscape to negotiate. But I think that things like the LA Zine Fest here, it's off the charts. It's the most popular, I've never seen as much interest in zines in a single day than I have at LA Zine Fest. The 2,000 to 3,000 people show up. They always are turning people away to vend.
Wow.
And that's amazing. And it's anything they want to talk about. And I'm really proud of LA Zine Fest saying that you're going to come here and you're going to present zine, at least 80% of your table is zines. It can't be the accoutrement of you have this really cool beanie that says zine, but you don't have any zines, which has happened to us before. We've gone to places to ask, hey, would you consign zines? They're like, no, we're not interested in this. But you got the beanie, dude. It's a cool beanie, but
Oh, gotcha. All the dressings, but none of the actual content.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I sort of talked about it a little bit, but I do think that zines have maybe gotten a lot more personal in general, or at least uh, the larger portion of the ones that I see, I think are less, like I think at the time of something like Flipside or a lot of music zines where you were trying to find like a punk in every small town in America,
Right.
and sort of tell that story or connect people. I think that, yeah, a zine that sort of served this purpose of bringing a whole scene together, I think those certainly exist, but I think are fewer and farther between at this point. And
agreed.
yeah, and I think that it's also interesting to see, I think that, I don't know, just zines that are about identity and gender and sexuality, and zines that can maybe go beyond just popular culture, where that I think was very strong in the past. I think that zines have also, there's still like a really strong suit for zines when it's talking about culture that is otherwise othered in society, or maybe like harder to have. And I think that that's also where, because zines are like someone who's 16 and someone who's 60, like they can understand what a zine is, and they can get the message that you're putting into the pages. And so, yeah, I think that there's an enormous power that they have to communicate a message, no matter how simple or complicated that thing is. And so, yeah, and I think that, I don't know, and it's really cool to see places like the library, like the public library next to our space, the Edendale branch. They have an incredible zine collection, and I think especially as there's more books being banned, or more questions around like what is appropriate to put into a book and to publish and circulate, I think it's really cool that zines also still feel like a really safe and exciting place to, I don't know, yeah, preserve culture that otherwise somebody else might not want to be
And
as
explore
available.
difficult questions, and really specific questions for individuals that may not have avenues to kind of express things otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, do you think Stolen Sharpie Revolution is still being ran? Do you think it's still used as some sort of guidebook?
I think it has utility, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely gives it like Alex did a good job of like making, like giving some zine history. Also, just some very pragmatic things about making zines.
Okay.
You know, I think it's interesting. Like it's the thing we haven't talked about is like, how do you make something look good? How do you make it reproduce?
Sure.
You know, knowing the difference between 72 DPI, which looks great on a screen, but looks like garbage when you put it into print. So,
Right.
you know, learning those types of things I think are very helpful if you
Yeah.
want to make it look good, but you're not pro. You just, I think one thing that makes a good zine is, to me, it's legible. It's I'm a reader.
Oh, sure.
It's readable, you know, because if you have all these great ideas and it's just muddy through because you don't know how to navigate a photocopier,
Right.
you know, that's something that's very helpful. I think that
Yeah.
Alex provides in that scene, in Stolen Sharpie. Yeah.
Ah, cool. Shifting slightly to everyone's favorite topic, money. How are the two of you managing to keeping it going? What are some of the choices you've made business-wise to ensure that you can keep it going? It is such a narrow field, so to speak, and you know, as things change, it has to be one of those things that are kind of, you're always weighing. And I'm just kind of curious as to like how you're managing to keep it going.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I might chew on that for a moment.
Okay, okay.
Sure.
So we were very fortunate that we became a nonprofit pretty early on, within 3 or 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And we saw I saw the writing on the wall, and it was basically like, we're ethical punks. We're never going to overcharge for advertising. We're not going to accept advertising for dumb things or cigarettes or cars or alcohol, but we will accept ads for like homemade stick and poke tattoos. That's cool, or independent records, right? So we thought, let's give it a shot. let's try to become a nonprofit music magazine.
All right.
How many are there in the United States?
2, 1.
One.
Yeah.
We're the only ones that carry our own designation, and it was brutal
Oh.
because they thought, how are you different than Rolling Stone? And you're talking to some bureaucrat in Middle America saying, okay, well, this is how we're fundamentally different.
Right.
So that saved us, because what that does is it shows people, like, I can't, like, if, say something we do goes crazy. I don't know how it would go crazy, but just say we raked in $100,000. That $100,000 doesn't go into my pocket. It goes into the kitty for Razorcake for us to continue doing what we're doing. And that way, we also share our sincerity and our trust with our contributors, who are all volunteers. They know that I get paid and Daryl gets paid, but it's barely living wages for Los Angeles. If anybody asks, we're transparent with them.
Right.
So that was a huge thing that we did. And then national distribution went into the toilet. And Daryl came up with a plan where basically anybody can donate $150 to us. And what that does is it sends a bundle of 25 issues once every 2 months, or bi-monthly, to anywhere in the United States. And so the place gets them, they get them for free. They don't even pay for them.
Right.
All they have to do is shepherd them. They can sell them if they want. It doesn't matter. But the thing is, we've inverted our distribution, so it's all prepaid.
Oh, okay.
So when we do a print run, our last print run was 6,050. The extra 50 was for this reading here.
Oh, cool.
Is every one of those zines are accounted for. They're all sold. We go to the next thing. And so with being nonprofit, we now have grants. We're eligible for grants. We don't get all of them. And we have advertising, and we have subscribers.
Wow.
And so this has been very, very deliberate. It is very, very not fun. And we balance our books every month. So we go, okay, this is going to work. Oh, we have enough money to do another project. Cool. We've never put anything on a credit card that gained interest. You know, we'll use it as a day-to-day business.
Gotcha.
But that's it.
Right.
And so, very fortunately, I was able to buy a house in Highland Park in 2007, right before everything went into the toilet, and that we run Razorcake out of the basement. So, and I promised Razorcake we're never raising the rent, and so we have a very static expenses
I see.
for the most part.
Yeah.
You can't control shipping, you can't control the USPS, you can't control how much it's going to cost for your printer. You can negotiate,
Right.
and that's where we're at.
Wow.
So it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
it's a things can go sideways so quickly, and we're in a good spot. So
Cool.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely still pretty green with the project. Like, we're entering our 4th year now, and so it's just been a business registered under my name up until this point, and we're sort of deciding if we want to become a nonprofit and how that would look. And I think for our space, because it is something that's open regularly, and we have a staff of people that I pay part-time, and we run lots of events and workshops where we try to pay the teachers and the hosts of those events and all of that stuff. I think that my approach has very much been around trying to keep the costs as low as possible, and then trying to put the money that we're making back into the people working at the space and running the space. And we're incredibly fortunate to have had so many giant donations of books for the library. Most of the books in our collection were donated by individual artists, people getting rid of books, publishers, and I think that I think with the space that I run, like, I want there to be a totally free experience for people. You can come in and just read a book on the couch, and you can take a class that's by donation, trying to offer dignity in things where people aren't giving anything other than their time and attention to what we're doing.
Right.
But then at the same time, because we do have expenses and our rent is pretty considerable, I think that we also will sell art at the space, and we'll do events that are ticketed, and we'll have workshops that require a lot of materials, and therefore we have to account for that within the costs of those things. But I think that it's important to think about how your community is benefiting from what you're doing, and what you can ask of your community, but also trying to I don't know, just the idea of like one man's trash is another man's treasure, like figuring out where there is excess within things and how that excess that may be a burden on one person can actually benefit people in a positive way for ourselves, I think. But yeah, I certainly don't have all the answers.
No, and I would imagine it's always evolving, and it's balancing accessibility against finances, and always trying to thread that needle. And it sounds like to the two of you, you're just always trying to work to maintain both things. Is kind of what it sounds like. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, I think we're gonna take some listener questions in a little bit, so I'm gonna just end on some zine recommendations if you have any.
There's a project that was a zine that was run for a number of years and was recently collected into a book called Shotgun Seamstress. Yeah. That's a great one. Yeah, I love Osa's
She was just on our cover, Osa was,
Yeah.
She's
Osa's awesome, and she's also a ceramic artist. Yeah, and really, really incredible with that. But yeah, the Shotgun Seamstress book I think came out a couple years ago, and definitely track that down if you are interested in music and a lot of like the history of like black punk music, and yeah, that's definitely one
that's
that's
cool.
top
That
of
sounds
my
great.
mind.
Yeah, Todd?
So yeah, there's favorites, longtime favorites.
Sure.
And then another thing that you were saying is that what Matthew was saying was like there's zinesters that have so many titles.
Oh, sure.
Like I think like a guy named Billy McCall does so many different things. He'll do a zine about flags or do a zine about work. He has a great collection about working in a casino. I think Billy McCall is a great zinester. I would say Liz Mason would be another. She's been the head person or the manager at Quimby's in Chicago for 20 odd years, and she does a ton of different zines. Caboose is one of them, but they're all really interesting. But long-time ones would be like Ben Snakepit. He's been doing 3 panels a day for over 25 years. There's our buddy Kevin Dunn used to do this zine called Geneva 13, where he lived in there's 13 Genevas in the United States, and in the one that he lived in, he interviewed most of the, he interviewed like the people that run the boxing gym, the people that run the waste sewage water treatment plant, that kind of thing. So it was really, really great. And then I kind of want to go and see everything that he wrote about. Mm-hmm. And there's just, so I would say another one that I like, and so I really don't like baseball that much. I really want to like baseball a lot more than I do, but I contribute to one called Zisk, and there's more than one ways to be a fan and talking about stuff like that. So I don't know. Once you get in, there's so many. What do you like? What are your proclivities? And you can find something.
Yeah.
And I do recommend the Zine Fest. I know they're going to have it next year at the Broad. So
cool.
If you want to dive deeply into this, it'll be a really good collection of things in one place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't. I love Snake Pit, and I subscribe to his Patreon now.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because he's reprinting his zines from the aughts.
Yeah.
And then he gives like little footnotes about what he reflects upon 20 years later, and like kind of a lot of his regrets, because he's so open about his life then, and so many of his poor choices, and just some of his embarrassing moments. And,
I've been in several of them.
Oh yes, I've seen him. I've seen him as well. Yeah. So we have time for a couple of audience questions if anybody is interested in asking our 2 panelists. And I see a hand. All right, cool beans. Please end your question with a question mark, is all we ask.
Thank you. So I make a lot of art, and a lot of time I feel like I'm kind of making it on an island. I don't use a lot of social media. I am sort of a homebody. And how do you actually share what you make?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that that's a question that really motivated the space that I run, and something that we do at the library is we have a box that's like a free zine, take a zine, leave a zine, and so if anybody is interested, they can totally bring a zine that they've made and leave it in the box, and who knows who may take it, but that sort of level of randomness that happens in real space and time is really nice, and we also take donations of zines from people. So if you're interested in adding a copy to the library that is sort of permanent, then that's definitely a nice way for several people to interact with it and find it in different ways. But I think that it's nice to find pen pals or people in different cities who you can just trade things with. I think that when you remove some of the money from the exchange of a zine or an art object, I think that definitely invites some enthusiasm from people, whoever it is that ends up getting it. And I would also say, last suggestion is if you can come up with a zine where there is sort of an open call, I think that is always a great way to meet other people and engage with other people's work, because the magazine that I used to do, we would have a submission section and then there would be interviews with people and stuff like that, but everybody who submitted was able to then see their work shared alongside a bunch of other work and felt recognized, even though the barrier of entry was simply just to send the work and give some information about yourself. And if you're a fan of something, maybe you could propose a fanzine about something and tell people, if you're a fan of this, send a drawing or send a short story or send something, and then through your task of putting that together, you'll find that you've created the community that you might be looking for.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of finding your own weirdos, So if you do artwork, I would recommend even going to poetry readings. And if you really respond to somebody who's reading, strike up a conversation with them, saying, I would love to do a collaboration with you. Trying to find those. Very few things are for us is a straight line. So you want to say, I do collage, or I really respond to these types of things. Maybe we can do something. So trying to find. I also just feel much more comfortable at a community level. So tonight there's a poetry reading at North Fig Bookstore, for sure. And just getting tapped into those things where you have a very light hand with social media. It's kind of this, instead of having a flyer on a pole, you use it for that. Cool, going to that, gonna go do that. And then building those relationships, that's how I would do it.
Yeah, even I think interviews are always a great format too, because it's rare that someone's gonna say, I don't wanna be interviewed.
True.
And typically if it's 20 minutes of somebody's time on a phone call or over an email, it's not a huge ask from somebody, and in a lot of ways, I met so many of the artists I work with and built so many of my relationships from just interviewing people, and I honestly can't believe now, just looking back at myself as a teenager, inviting myself to someone's house to ask them how they had their career sort of get started, and so it goes a long way to sort of show your appreciation for what someone else is doing, and having curiosity, I think, means a lot to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Got time for one more question, if anybody's got any. No? All right.
So Heavy Manners is in Echo Park. It's on the corner of Sunset and Alvarado, and it's very close to Echo Park Lake, and it's in the building that used to be the Echo Park Film Center and Machine Project, which are both great LA art spaces as well.
All right, well, let's, any final thoughts then? Anything you want to impart to the audience, or just something you want them to leave with, or?
Two real quick things.
Sure.
Is that I think that our currency is integrity. That's how we've been able to do this for so long. And the best thing to help support these long, ongoing things is showing up, small donation, subscribing, it just takes away a lot of the wear and tear of doing these things, and also shows appreciation both ways. And I think, speaking for you too, it's like we try to keep things as reasonably priced,
Yeah.
and no one's really turned away for entry,
Right.
right? But
Back to the
we
accessibility.
live in a terribly capitalist society, so we're trying to balance those things all the way. So if we can meet in the middle, that's how we survive. That's how we thrive amongst these things that are much bigger than us, that can crush us if it puts its attention to us, but we can thrive otherwise.
Yeah. Cool.
Totally, yeah. And I think I would also just like to add too, like, I don't know, thank you so much to the public library for
yeah, sure.
sharing the stage with us, and everybody to coming to the public library. I think libraries are such a vital and an important type of space to provide, and having worked in magazines and media and record labels and stuff, I think I was always so enamored by the fact that archivists and the library it's so uncompetitive. It's so motivated by curiosity and wonder. And yeah, thank you all just for showing up and participating and supporting the library. Like, it means so much, and hopefully will continue to just exist forever.
Yeah.
That's the idea. All right, guys, can we give them a big round of applause? All right, thanks so much for coming today. It's gonna do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.